Listen up. So we just discussed in class right now what a standard form equation was. It's just the way it looks. So right here, again, we're explaining that it's capital AX plus capital BY equals capital C. The capitals just are there to help you to remember that you don't want fractions. Okay? So when we look at number 1, and they ask us to rewrite number 1, which is in function form right now, y is by itself, but I'm telling you to rewrite it in standard form. Well, the first thing to note is that you don't want fractions. So you need to get rid of these fractions right here. How are you going to get rid of the 2/3? Multiply everything by 3. So this times 3, this fraction times 3, and this 1 times 3, everything by 3. So you will have 3y equals, cancels, 2x minus 3. So it's almost in standard form. All you need to do is get rid of that 2x by subtracting 2x and subtracting 2x. Now let's just rewrite it. You can't subtract it. Let's rewrite it. So what's my standard form equation going to be? Negative 2x plus 3y. That's right, negative 2x plus 3y equals negative 3. Now this is an acceptable answer. However, some math teachers prefer the a value to be 1, so either one's good with me. On your final exam, if you don't see this, you might see this one written down in place of it. Both of those are acceptable. You notice that they're the same thing. I just changed the sign right here, change the sign, change the sign. So let's try number 2. What would I do to get rid of these fractions? Multiply everything by what? By 6 is the best option. Because if you multiply everything by 6, it'll get rid of both fractions at the same time. Now you could get rid of the 2 by multiplying everything by 2, but then you have to get rid of the 3 by multiplying everything by 3. So it's easier to get it all done at once by multiplying everything by 6. So we'll have 6y equals 6 over 2 is 3, and 3 times 1 is 3x. And over here, 6 over 3 is 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. So ladies and gentlemen, I have an equation that doesn't have fractions. So far, so great. Now all I need to do is get the x to the other side to have it in standard form. So I'm going to go minus 3x, cancels. Answer is negative 3x plus 6y equals 4. Or positive 3x minus 6y equals negative 4. This is great. This is also good. It all just depends on what multiple choice answer they give you on the final, which is in a couple of weeks. By the way, we are going to have a quiz on this stuff Friday. Moving on. Jumping to number 3. What do I multiply everything by? By 4. Multiply by 4, multiply by 4, multiply by 4. 4 times y, 4y. Equals, now 4 divided by 2 cancels out, and you'll have 2 left over up on top, and 2 times 7 is 14 with an x. Now over here, the 4 and the 4 cancel out, so you have a plus 1 left over. It's almost in standard form. The only thing I have to do is what? Subtract 14x. Subtract 14x. So rewrite it and you're done. Negative 14x plus 4y equals 1. So there's your standard form equation. Now if you wanted to change your a value to be positive, you just change all the signs. Be a positive 14x minus 4y equals negative 1. That's also acceptable. You need to know that both of those are the same. So I hope that you guys are able to change an equation to look like standard form, and just the same, I could ask you to change a standard form to look like function form. That would be get y by itself. So those types of questions will be on the test. Now, once you know standard form really well, you're going to understand that standard form is an excellent method of finding the x and y intercepts of a line. So we need to know what the word intercept actually means. Now, if I say that Southwest High School is at the intersection of Ocotillo and La Boucherie, what does that mean?
Where the two lines meet?
Yeah, here's La Boucherie, here's Ocotillo, here's Southwest, right? So it's where the two streets cross. That's the intersection when we're talking about streets. So, ladies and gentlemen, standard form is excellent to find the intercept of x's and y's, right? So intersection means where the streets cross. An intercept is simply where the line crosses the x-axis or the line crosses the y-axis. So that's what it says right here. X-intercept, it's where the line will cross the x-axis. Y-intercept, where the line will cross the y-axis. So we already know what that looks like. It tells you where it crosses. That's the location. Now, right here are the notes. How do you find the x and y-intercepts? So in order to find your x-intercept, you must set y equal to 0 and solve. In order to find your y-intercept, you must set x equal to 0 and solve. So check this out. Let's go down here to this example. And it says find the x and y-intercepts. Now, whenever I find the x and y-intercepts, I always write x int, I write y int, I put a squiggly line right between them. Can you guys please So I hope you guys follow this format also. Label your x int, y int, so you can show your work on the left and right side. Now, what we need to know is how do you find the x-intercept? You need to know that you're going to set y equal to 0 and solve. So it's a good idea maybe to even write that down. Set y equal to 0. And I want to put this in a little cloud right here because that's what you need to know. Now, what do I mean by set y equal to 0? Well, here's your equation, and here's y. Let's put a 0 right there. So it's really going to be 3x plus 6, but instead of y, we're going to put a 0 right there, equals 6. And this becomes a really easy equation to solve because 6 times 0 is 0, and you really have 3x equals 6. And if we continue solving, we're going to divide by 3, which means x equals 2. And that is your x-intercept. It's the location of where your line is going to cross the x-axis. Now let's do the same, but for the y-intercept. Now, up above, it says, in order to find your y-intercept, you must set x equal to 0 and solve. That's what it says right here. In order to find your y-intercept, you must set x equal to 0 and solve. So over here on my y-intercept work, I want to write down set x equal to 0 and solve. So I want to put this in a little cloud because that's what I need to know. So what does that mean, set x equal to 0 and solve? Here's my x. I want to put a 0 right there. It's going to be 3 times 0 plus 6y equals 6. So put a 0 right in there and work this out. You're going to get nothing, which is 6y equals 6, which means y equals what? 1. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have found the x-intercept and the y-intercept. Now, this is the location of where your line is going to cross your x-axis. This is the location of where your line is going to cross the y-axis. Now, if you actually want coordinates, your x value is 2 because you just found that x equals 2. And what's your y value? Well, we said that y was equal to 0. That's what we started with right there. For the other coordinate, your x value is 0. We started by saying x equals 0 for your y-intercept. And your y coordinate, we just solved that y equals 1. So we put a 1 right there. Now, what does this do? It actually helps us graph even faster than with an XY table. Because if you know it crosses at x equals 2, and you know it crosses at y equals 1, then you already have 2 points on your line. And that's all you really need for your line. You only need 2 points. So, you could just draw your line right through those. Whoops. Let me draw it in blue. And that's the graph of your line. So instead of having to, when you graph this, instead of having to get y by itself and then making an xy table and then plugging in 3 numbers and pulling out 3 answers, you could say, oh, this is in standard form. And if it's in standard form, it's really easy to graph. You could just find your x-intercept, your y-intercept, and then you could find those x-intercepts and y-intercepts and then graph your line through those intercepts. So this is another method of graphing. It's not in function form, it's in standard form. Let's move up to the top. So up here, let's find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. Let's start out by doing the format. So I zoomed in, and I'm also starting x-int, y-int. Now, how do you find the x-intercept? You set y equal to 0, and you solve. How do you find the y-intercept? You set x equal to 0, and you solve. These are things that you guys need to memorize for this Friday's quiz and for the final exam in a couple of weeks. So let's set y equal to 0. I'm going to rewrite my equation, negative 3x plus 4y, but instead of y, I'm going to put a times 0 in there, equals 12. And for my y-intercept, I'm going to set x equal to 0. So let me rewrite the whole thing, negative 3x, but instead of x, I'm going to put 0 right here, plus 4y equals 12. So when you have the zeros, it really becomes easy because you could just scratch them out. 4 times 0 is 0. You have a new equation that says negative 3x equals 12, which means that x equals negative 4, and that's your x-intercept. Now over here, 3 times 0 is 0, and you have 4y equals 12, which means that when you divide by 4 on both sides, you get y equals 3, and that's another answer right there. Now both of those are more than answers. They're the location of where it crosses the x and the y axis. So the x-intercept is negative 4. That means that on the x-axis, it's going to cross at negative 4. So we're going to put a dot right there. And the other one is y equals 3. So it's going to cross the y at positive 3. You're going to put a dot right there. Now, you already know that through 2 points exists a line. So all you have to do is draw your line right through those 2 points, and you graphed it. You're done. So it's a lot easier than rewriting it in function form and then making an XY table, plugging in 3 numbers, and sometimes it's not even 0, 1, and 2. Sometimes you have fractions. So this is a lot easier to graph. So I hope we're understanding this. We only have a minute left. Let's see if we could do this. Start by doing the x-int, y-int. And of course, to do the x-intercept, you need to set y equal to 0. To do the y-intercept, you need to set x equal to 0. So let me rewrite my equation. 2x minus 12 times 0 equals 6. And on the other one, it's going to be 2x minus 12y equals 6 also. But instead of 2x, I want to put 2 times 0 minus 12y equals 6. So on the left side, this cancels, and I have 2x equals 6. If you divide by 2, x equals 3. That's your x-intercept. Over here, that cancels. Divide by negative 12, you'll get y equals negative 1/2, and that's your y-intercept. So for the sake of time, I just put the dot on the y-intercept halfway up right there, and at 3 right there, just draw a line through it and you'll be done.